Hey, welcome to Wine Talks with Paul Kalemkiarian, of course, available on Spotify, Google Play, and Stitcher, or wherever you hang out for your podcast, and always represented and sponsored by the Original Wine of the Month Club, where we feature pure and dynamic wines in our Pure and Organic Wine Club. But today, this is my second recording today, but we're very happy to have Vincenzo D'Andrea.
Ciao, molto piacere. Ciao, buongiorno a tutti.
You know, when I walked in, you said ciao. I wanted to say something in French.
No, please. Don't use French. Don't use French with an Italian. Don't do that.
Yeah, right. Is there, don't tell the French this. Don't tell them. But, you taught them how to cook. Right? Did you know that?
Well, yeah, that's how they learn most of the things.
Yeah,
wine,
most of the things. Yeah, right.
Food,
yeah. I'm sure they
football.
Appreciate that.
Yeah, the European football.
Yeah. I was studying French, and I look only because my father speaks 5 languages, and one of them is French. And so at 90 years old, I wanted to have a conversation with him. So I started about 5 years ago. But one of my sister-in-law, who speaks French and Italian, wants to speak Italian. She goes, "Oh, you have to learn Italian. It's the romantic language."
It is, but as I told you before, I mean, if you're already married, you don't really need to learn.
It's a problem, isn't it? And you met my beautiful wife already. So
yeah, I did it. Oh, yeah, that's true.
She works here, so it's kind of hard to be like screwing around, right? So, but Catherine de' Medici, the famous princess, or I'm not sure what you countess, who came to France. I think she married
one of those French
guys, aristocrats, and brought with her chefs.
Correct.
And taught the French how to cook.
Yeah, and how to use the fork.
Yeah, how to use the fork. Yes, yeah, I know it's very important.
Yeah, that was Caterina de' Medici from Florence. Actually.
Was she from Florence?
Yeah, she's from Florence.
So she's Tuscan.
Yeah. The Medici family was one of the most important families in the world at the time, and they were from Florence.
I have a book called The Great Chefs of France, but it was written in 1978, so it's all about Trois Gros and Alain Chapelle and Paul Bocuse and things. But the whole beginning of the book, which is about half of it, is about this trek of Catherine de' Medici and the food and the evolution of food in France. So it's very interesting. So it's what's interesting to me, and we'll talk about the wines now. In fact, I haven't introduced you as to where you work, but how different the foods are, though they came from Italy, basically. I mean, here you have this red sauce-based pastas, and now you have cream sauce-based French food. It's so interesting to me that they evolved like that.
Yeah, it was. We have to admit that the French is in the 80s, let's say starting from the 70s, they really bring the food to a different level.
They did.
But when it comes to tradition, when it comes to the simplicity of ingredients, well, we have a lot to say.
Yes, of course. Okay, I want to talk about we're with Bibi Graetz.
So Bibi Graetz is a Florentine winery. So that's why we know Caterina de' Medici so well. Well, we belong to the same city.
And David and the rest, right?
Yeah, David is our neighbor.
So Bibi Graetz, it's a person.
Bibi Graetz is a person. Yeah, it's a person. It's an artist. So the background of Bibi is actually art, as most of the Florentine people, and that's the reason why our approach to winemaking, our approach to producing red wines and white wines, it's let's say completely out of the box. It's completely unexpected from a Tuscan producer.
Well, so far what I've tasted, this is not the first time around for me, but the 2 entry-level wines are gorgeous examples of what they're to be, and they're very reasonable. And what I thought was very striking for the price, with like a $15 shelf item, the expression of the terroir, which we'll get into in a little bit because we're going to talk about your history in thing. But Bibi, briefly, an artist. How did he come into the wine business?
So, the family, Graetz, first of all, doesn't sound very Italian,
No, it doesn't, yeah.
So the family is actually coming from, is half Norwegian, half Israeli. And Bibi's grandfather moved to Italy in 1950 and decided to retire there. They found this beautiful property, which is 10 minutes far from the city center, so from Ponte Vecchio in Firenze, in Florence. And the property includes a 1,000-year-old castle. In Tuscany we have more castles than houses.
That's 1,000 years old is kind of young, isn't it? It's not that very
old.
It's
kind of young in Tuscany, that's true. And olive trees and, of course, vineyards, because Everybody has a vineyard in the backyard in Tuscany. And the family actually produced wines for almost 50 years before getting it, let's say, more professionals into it. So they were just making wine, they were just making olive oil, and for the family, for the Sunday lunches, the Italian Sunday, rich and Sunday lunches, Do
you think? I want to go back to that when we start talking about winemaking. So hold that thought, because my cousin just called me. He lives in the valley here, which is a hot area of Los Angeles, and he planted some vines. And he sent me some pictures of the grapes last week, and I said, "Boy, they're getting pretty ripe." He goes, "Do you know anybody?" Whatever. And this is what's interesting about wine, and we're going to talk about all this too. But he is so excited. He found a co-op, a custom crush facility to pick it and to crush it and to ferment it, and he is so excited. And it's this unexplainable sort of ethereal idea about wine and its romance and its as a beverage itself, what it does to you, not only the alcohol but the feeling you get. And now he's starting to tell his own story, right? He's going to be able to bottle this wine, which I think he's got like 2 cases worth of grapes to make, right? And it's going to be like a Cab Merlot blend. It doesn't have much chance of being all that great, right? Because the first vintage in a weird area. But he's just thrilled to death. What is it? You studied wine, right?
Yeah. My background is winemaking. That's what I studied.
Tell me about that. Why?
Well, as Florence is known for wine, food, and fashion. And as I told you before, I don't really see myself into fashion. So,
look the way you dress; it's awesome.
So when I had to decide what to do, just after high school, I took University of Winemaking in Florence. That was like a very easy pick. Well, apart that, my family has been into wine for a while. So my dad is also winemaker, and is also has been in Israel for all his life. So for me, it was like a continuing family tradition more than apart the jokes, of course.
So, but you're a young man. You went to school. Is Italy a place where you should choose a profession along that path, or do you just sort of stay in school, or what? Like you decide at one point, I think I'm just being the winemaker.
Yeah, well, it's I always knew. Yeah. I always knew I want to be a winemaker.
Oh, really?
Yeah, there was. I grew up in an environment where good wine is always on the table. My family house, it's in the middle of vineyards, so for me it was like a natural evolution of myself.
So you go to school.
Yeah, I went to school. I got my university degree in winemaking, and I started working in the cellars, of course, with junior positions, because when you're that young.
You're a cellar rat.
Yeah.
Is there an Italian term for cellar rat?
Cellar hand, doing all the dirty job, but it was super fun and super. I was very happy about it. After a while, I'm a very curious person, so I wanted to see what's outside the door of the winery. And that's why I had my MBA in wine expert management up in the north, in Trentino, so in the north of Italy.
Oh, so they have a degree in not only winemaking and enology and probably the agriculture of that, but how to manage it.
Yeah, that's, nowadays you can make the best wine in the world, but you still need to know with such a global market how to approach that market, right?
It's crazy.
And think about the States. I mean, you don't have one single country here.
You don't. That's right.
Yeah, I mean, it's just the United States. It's more than 50. Yeah, it's 50 different markets that you have to approach. So it's a very complex world where you need to be prepared.
So you look at it as 50 different markets to approach because, of course, the East Coast is way different than the West Coast. And I look at it because I'm sending it to people of 50 different laws I got to deal with, and it's a total pain in the rear.
Yeah.
Okay, it's total pain, which is changing. It's changing quickly, actually. So you went to school in Trentino. So now you've been in Tuscany.
Yeah.
You've been in the Alto Adige, which is upper east part of Italy.
Yeah, right? Kind of, yeah.
The furthest northeast you can go, basically.
Yeah, exactly, yeah.
And then Piemonte?
Piemonte, yeah.
Oh, you've been in Piemonte too?
Yeah, I worked in Piemonte before. Before joining Bibi, actually, I was living in Alba, which is a very nice village that is well known for the white truffle.
Yes.
And truffle season is starting now, so if you want to visit Alba,
now's the time.
Now is the time. Now's
the
time.
white truffle is the less pungent of the two, is it not?
Exactly.
Yes, it's more elegant.
It's elegant, it's smooth, and it's so intense.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just a different word.
Does that influence the wine up there in Alba? Because you've got, there's Dolcetto d'Alba and all these different grapes. So do you sense that in the grape sometimes, like the character of?
Well, there is of course terroir is so important when it comes to wine, and you really feel you can find kind of the same. You need to look for them, but they're there. Yeah.
Because in Northern California, on the way to Northern California, there's an area called Gilroy, California. It's known for its garlic.
Okay.
And if you literally, when you drive by Gilroy on the freeway, you smell the garlic.
Really?
And I've had wines from one particular winery called Clos La Chance, which is near there. And there are some times that it's got this garlic sort of character to it. Not unlike wines from Sardinia or Sicily, where you get that Mediterranean salt savoriness, right? So I just wondered about the Alba. So now you've worked with Nebbiolo, right? And you've worked with the Trentino. What do you got?
Well, the Emilia Teroldego. I mean,
Teroldego
is like the number
some
one.
Of the whites. Yeah. And then now Tuscany.
Sangiovese,
and
Canaiolo, Colorino.
Yeah, right.
That's the beauty of Bibi Graetz. Now, today we're known, when it comes to Bibi Graetz, we are known for having the biggest collection of old vines in Tuscany. So we are completely in love with old vines. We have around 80 hectares of old vines. It means when I say old vines, it means from 80 to 135 years old plants, and that's really old.
That is old.
Yeah.
So what does that do to the yields? Does it bring the yields down and concentrate the grapes?
I like numbers when it comes to yield per hectare. No, in Tuscany you can have top wines producing 90 hectoliters per hectare. When you deal with such old vineyards, you have 18 to 20 hectoliters per hectare.
Wow. Huge difference. But also it's huge difference in quality. Well, yes, that's would be
that's the goal.
Like when we were growing fruit in our yard, we want to prune the bushes or prune the trees so that we get more concentrated fruit, better fruit than thinner fruit. But now we have the age of the vine contributing to that.
Definitely.
So I had a question. Maybe we should answer this, and that is, if I'm going to get less yield per vine, and that's strictly more concentrated grapes, am I getting more terroir because of that too?
Well, what you said is correct, but there is a big differences between having a low yield with young vines and having a low yield with old vines. So to have low yield with young vines, you need to prune the plant in a certain way, prune the shoots in a certain way, and do a lot of green harvest. So yes, you will have a lot of concentration.
Yes.
But when you deal with old vines, that's naturally happening. So there is not much that you have to do. The plant is naturally producing only few fruit grapes, clusters. So at the end, you're still able to have a lot of elegance, a lot of finesse, and terroir.
Because I noticed these wines were very terroir driven.
They're very terroir driven. They're all very terroir driven. Yes.
So now the daily operation for Vincenzo D'Andrea.
See.
What happens? You get up, you overlook this beautiful vineyard.
I get up, first of all,
this is a great job. I'm done for the day.
First of all, like most of the Italians, I need to start my day with a very good coffee.
Yes, of course.
That's the number one rule. And after that, I head to the office, and my job is in between, let's say, sales and marketing, but I'm also in the board of the blending of the wines.
Yes.
So let's say that 80% of my time it's sales and marketing, but I still keep a good 20% of my time where I'm actually trying the wines with Bibi Graetz and together alongside defining what's going to be the final blend for each wine.
So, but you're blending, since, like, for instance, the two reds we tasted were 100% Sangiovese.
Sangiovese, correct.
So yes. The blend is what? The lots or the barrels?
The plots.
The plots.
The plots. So we have 80 hectares. They're mainly in between Florence and Siena. And for one single vineyard, we do up to 8 harvests.
Really?
So as you can imagine, at the end of the day...
because of where it's facing, because of the sun exposure?
Sun exposure, and also just for the quality of the grapes. Yeah. So from one vineyard, we have 8 different wines. And at the end of the game, that's a big funny blending process to go through.
And so you blend for your optimal character for that that vintage.
Exactly.
You're going to have stuff left over. Where does that go?
Well, our goal is to produce Colore and Testamatta, which are the 2 flagship wines. So the whole winery is working to produce Testamatta and Colore. And then when the blend of Colore is done, when the blend of Testamatta is done, we just go down the ladder. So let's say we have the 3rd wine and the 4th wine, and of course they have different styles thanks to these selections.
Right, because of that, right? That's so interesting. So the Testamatta, what does that mean?
Testamatta is it's actually 2 Italian words combined together. Testa means head, and matta is crazy. So crazy head.
Okay, so but you made this is a word, or you made the word?
No, well, that's the words is Bibi. He's picking out the words.
Oh yeah,
yeah. But Testamatta, it's him. There's no better way to describe Bibi Graetz. He's an artist. It's crazy in a good way. So Testamatta in Florence is someone with a very strong personality, someone that doesn't like rules, and someone that just go for the best.
Yeah, that's great. Well, the wines are classic. So I had some friends, and I've already gotten in trouble for this comment, so I'm going to say it again because I've already gotten in trouble. And they've have their cellars. They just built 2 beautiful homes, 2 beautiful cellars. They've filled it with Napa Cabernet because that's what they understand. I've been trying to discuss with them Bordeaux and Burgundy and Sangiovese and Tuscan wines and all over Italy. Italy's gorgeous spectrum of wines, right? And pretty much deaf ears. Nobody paid attention to me. I'm talking the last 10 to 15 years, okay? But then they go to Chianti 2 months ago. And they went to, I forgot the name of the wineries they went to, and they said, we like this better than Napa. So now when I find wines like this, I'm gonna, as soon as this is done, I'm gonna call them and say, look, I've got these 2 wines on here. There's 2 reds, one for your daily drinking and one for your cellar. I think you need it. And as soon as I say it's from Toscana, they're gonna say, oh yeah, bring it in, right? And it's so fascinating because different profiles altogether than what we were used to drinking in California from Napa, but just as elegant, not just as, but elegant and different.
That's the beauty of the area of Chianti Classico and the center of Tuscany, that Sangiovese actually express in such a very unique way. I mean, you have the vibration of the Sangiovese, the acidity, the freshness of the Sangiovese, but at the same time you have so much elegance and finesse that it's really unique way to.
This wine is, but I think you said earlier that you are in Chianti Classico.
Well, most of our vineyards, yes. So we have collected old vines all over in Tuscany. You cannot plant old vines, right?
Yes.
You need to.
That's right. You can't just find them. You can't go to the nursery and get old vines. Okay,
exactly. So we had to, in the past 20 years, our main goal, our main task was collect old vines. And that's the reason why all our vineyards are not on the same plot. They are from Florence to Siena, and that's 60 kilometers. In the north of Florence, about 25 minutes from the city, and then in the south of Siena, facing Montalcino. So we can literally play with different colors. No? You know what I mean?
Right, yeah.
And then
for sure.
Put all those colors together and make a fantastic painting of Tuscany.
Wow, that's beautiful.
Yeah. That's what we do.
We should just leave the conversation at that. It's so profound. So we were talking off camera a little bit about the IGT and the Super Tuscan. So being in the business all the years I've been in it, and the beginning of what we would call Super Tuscans, and I've had Piero Ancenza, who's the grandson of the guy that started, Ornellaia, and right, all that, or Sassicaia. So originally it felt like, we're going to take some declassified grapes like Cabernet Merlot and Syrah, and we're going to plant them in an area where you're not supposed to use them. And if you use them, you can't call them the Chianti or the district it's from, like the traditional thing. So we're going to change the name to Super Tuscan. And we're going to tell the Americans, we've got this Italian wine, this is Super Tuscan, we're going to charge $100 a bottle.
This is the story.
Oh, you're shaking your head. Yes, that's great.
Yeah. This is the story. I mean, you got it.
So, but then, the wines truly are elegant, and there's some wonderful values in the Super Tuscan arena. But tell me now what the definition of Super Tuscan is, because you don't put any of those grapes. You only put Sangiovese.
We that's why we are kind of a out-of-the-box Super Tuscan producers, because we do produce Super Tuscan, and that's what we're known for. But we use indigenous grapes. And that's, let's say, a modern definition of Super Tuscans. So as you said, back in time, Super Tuscan was all about Cab and Merlot and just a little bit of Syrah. The region of production for Super Tuscan was more the Tuscan coast, Bolgheri, that area.
Right.
But then, as you said, Super Tuscan is not really an appellation. It's more like a definition.
Right.
Definition was given by journalists. So today, the word Super Tuscan had an evolution, faced an evolution. And from being a Bordeaux-oriented blend, today under the umbrella of Super Tuscans, you find any kind of grapes, mostly indigenous grapes. So today the new trend for Super Tuscan is to rediscover traditional Tuscan grapes. And we've been doing that already for the past 20 years. So we're kind of 20 years ahead.
You're ahead of the curve on this.
In the current trends. And today, under the big umbrella of Super Tuscans, you can find Sangiovese, Canaiolo, Colorino. You can find all the, let's say, rarest and most unique grape varietals. So it's a bigger umbrella, and I like the fact that now Super Tuscan is way more and more linked to terroir. So terroir is again back to Super Tuscans.
So important.
Yeah,
I think it's important, and I've kind of preaching to the choir here, but if I can buy 15 wines for $45 on Groupon, and I'm just looking for 14% alcohol or better, I guess I'm fine. I'm very happy. But when I'm looking for the experience of wine, and I'm looking for the expression of wine, and I'm looking for the idea that I've found this Super Tuscan, it's 100% Sangiovese from this crazy guy named Bibi Graetz, that's an experience and a story I get to tell when I'm tasting the wine. So in your Super Tuscan, you have 100% Sangiovese, so no Canaiolo or anything.
On Testamatta, yes, that's correct. On Colore, so Colore, it's the wine that we produce only in the very special vintages. Yeah. In Colore, we also have Canaiolo and Colorino.
So again, no French varietals.
No French varietal.
And Italian, the country of Italian, or the ground of Italian, being probably one of the most prolific wine grape regions in the world. I mean, it's
thousands
like 2000s or something,
exactly.
Right? And I love the idea of bringing back some of these ancient varietals that they're finding. You know, on the hill, there's 1 vine, 2 vines, 10 vines left of these wines.
This is what we do.
So tell me then, how does the government then with the IGT? Tell me.
So IGT regulation, it's Indicazione geografica tipica. That's
right.
That's its translation.
Like I said.
Yeah, good Italian. It's actually you can produce IGT for any price, any quality, but you cannot call them Super Tuscans if they don't have outstanding quality.
I see.
And so there's a big difference between the two.
Yes.
So you need to have something which is really speaking for the terroir, for the region. And what we want when you try a bottle of Colore and Testamatta is literally that you get projected with your mind in Tuscany.
Yes.
You gotta be there. You gotta have your foot in the vineyard and experiencing that you're in a different terroir.
That's a great expression. Probably the most common thing that with Italian wines and my clients and friends, and I have 2 funny stories. One of them is more general, and that is I've had this happen many times, and they've all been Italian stories. Well, I'm sitting in front of the Parthenon. I've got my favorite trattoria. I'm sitting there, and I've got they're not even pouring wine glasses. We're in the old-fashioned style glasses, and I found this incredible wine. And I take a picture of it, and I literally text it to Paul K. at the Wine of the Month Club, and I say, I'm in Italy right now, and I want you to get this for me. So I look at the back label. I try to find the wine. I find it. I find the same vintage. Let's just pretend it's Testamatta. Mm-hmm. Okay? So they come and they pick it up. And then they call me later. It doesn't taste the same. And I say, gee, because we don't have they don't have their foot in the vineyard, meaning they're not sitting in front of the Parthenon on vacation, enjoying a whole new culture and a whole new world and food. They're back home with their regular kitchen, and the kids are pulling on their shirt tails, and the experience is different. Because I believe, and I think this can be borne out in any region of the world, that the terroir is not just the grape and how it receives the soil and the weather, it's the whole experience, right?
It's the whole experience. And that's why I always encourage people to come and visit. When that's what I do. When I wanted to discover a wine region, I mean, yes, first of all, I try to get as much information as possible on books and whatever, and then try the wines. But then the next step, if you want to understand the region, you need to visit.
Go there, right?
You need to go there. You need to feel. You need to eat in the trattoria held by the mama, preparing very old school cuisine. You need to feel the wind on your face. You need to have a full experience.
That's right.
Yeah.
So we went to Sirmione.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah, a little town right up the hill called Punta Samuncio, like one street, had a mayor, the whole thing. Rented a house because I wanted that exact experience. This is a few years ago. I did not want to visit. I wanted to live it and learn it. Go to the market, buy the cheese, start the barbecue, the whole thing. We had a beautiful house, zero-edge pool, I don't know, with some castle in the back. Mm-hmm. And we had guests come. So for 1 week, we had one family, and the next week, another family. We were there for a whole month. And that's what I wanted to feel, right? And then I found the young lady. Well, actually, she wasn't that young, but it was the daughter of the owner of the market. And she was this beautiful, Sophia Loren-esque woman. And she's slicing cheese at her father's market, like at 6 a.m. And my wife gets up, she's like, where'd Paul go? He's getting cheese, of course, every morning, right? This is what I did. So one family comes, and the first morning I take the husband down, and we get cheese. The next morning I wake up, he's already gone. I go, where did Greg go? She goes, he went to get some cheese. I go, without me? How can he go get cheese without me? I want to see her too. But the punchline of the story is I didn't experience Italy until we were driving back to Milan for our flight. Mm-hmm. And my friend was driving his car, and he cut somebody off, and the guy went like this to him through the window.
That's another side of Italy. Yeah.
Then I realized we had really experienced Italy.
If you want to experience Italy, drive in Italy.
That's so much fun.
But what you said is exactly what I meant, right?
Yes, that's what we wanted to do.
Yeah.
So when I come to Bibi Graetz, and I want to experience what we just talked about, and you're saying getting into the soil. What is it about the soil? What is it about the farming techniques? What is it about your vinification that I clearly sense the terroir in these wines the minute I put them to my nose?
Yeah.
What happens there?
So, well, first of all our winemaking techniques are conceived to underline the terroir. And that's why, first of all, we are 100% organic. Okay,
okay, that's good.
We believe that being organic is a big plus when you want to underline the terroir. Okay, because it's the vineyards can really express themselves. So in the vineyard, we don't even prune the shoots. We just let them go, because we believe
wow, that's interesting.
That's a very unique way. And I tell you, the first time I saw that, I was totally impressed, because that's against all the winemaking on the viticulture books that you learn at school.
What is it? What's that gain you? Is you getting more?
You have more elegance, because the plant it's pushing the energy on top of the shoots and not on the grapes. So the grapes comes like on the side of the plant. They're not, let's say, the main goal of the planet.
Really?
No? And that's how you keep the elegance and the finesse of the Sangiovese, Canaiolo, and Colorino.
So the plant is it's working on other things than just the grapes.
And forget about grapes.
Yeah.
That's how we achieve this level of quality.
Interesting.
And then when it comes to winemaking, and that's your passion. My passion. Yeah. Well, I want to tell you a story. And I was almost 6 years ago, and at the time I just moved back from Piemonte to Florence, and I entered the Bibi Graetz winery. It was September, so full harvest. Mm-hmm. And the image I got in front of me was all these open top barrels, more than 40 open top barrels, doing natural fermentations.
Really?
Natural fermentation.
So regular 60-gallon barrels, 66-gallon barrels.
225 liters.
Yeah, right.
And so natural fermentations means no selected yeast, no temperature control. So just grapes are the best. And at the time I said, okay, this is very interesting, but it's against all the books I've been studying.
Yeah. Wait, I went to school for this.
Yeah. So probably this guy here, the best thing he's going to have is vinegar. I mean, not wine.
Oops.
But then, that's the beauty about Bibi Graetz. I realized that by doing that, you really preserve the terroir, because the winemaking doesn't have an interaction. When you use selected yeast, you're adding something which is produced in a factory 1,000 kilometers away, and it doesn't belong to that region, doesn't belong to that soil. No? So natural fermentation is also a big plus when you want to underline the terroir.
That is, you just triggered an amazing thought that I just heard the other day. I met this guy, and he's Sri Lankan, and he was the guy that determined in Sri Lanka, if you get bitten by a snake, that the generic anti-venom doesn't work. If particularly a cobra is in Sri Lanka, you must have anti-venom from the snakes in that region.
Okay.
Because it's so specific to the region. And so that talks about the terroir of this. Now,
of venom.
When it comes to venom, that's true. But with yeast, a lot of winemakers are afraid of natural yeast because you can control them. It's slower, it's control. You don't know what's going to happen. You could be arrested.
Yeah.
And so you're running a risk by doing that.
We run a risk, and you know how we know that it's going to be okay? Just by the quality of the grapes.
Yes.
Every single berry in the bottle needs to be top quality. If you have one berry that is not at that level, you have a lot of risks.
Are these hand sorted or are they machine sorted?
No. Well, how can you machine?
Come on, man. What's wrong with you?
They're hand sorted, of course.
So the organic part of the vineyard, we get all kinds of people asking for stuff. We don't know if organic. I think organic is here to stay. I think it's a very important part of farming for the grape business. I think it's the other day I bought a dry farmed tomato, and it was fabulous. Right, tomatoes in America are horrible. Right,
usually
they
are.
Right. I mean, I have this whole theory about why you can come down the freeway and see a tomato truck, and the tomatoes at the bottom, which are under a lot of pressure, aren't even squished. Right.
Yeah,
there's a problem with that, in my opinion.
Big problem.
But so the terroir is so important to express. What it's doing, and so I think organic is an important part of farming in America and the world for grapes and for food. Biodynamic, not so sold, even though I understand it.
I mean, everybody can do whatever.
But I'm getting two different styles. Like your wines are elegant, they're expressive, they're terroir generated, and they're still organic.
Yeah,
and I get this other group, which is probably like 200 years old as far as how far back they're going and how rustic they want the wines. And I'm sure they're fabulous in that realm, right? If you want that style.
Well, I would like to use a phrase that was said by one of the greatest winemaker ever. Was a French guy.
Sorry. What are you going to do?
He said, being organic is not an excuse for producing bad wines.
Yeah. That's a good point. That's exactly what we're talking about.
So the wine needs to be perfect, and then it comes to winemaker.
Yes.
It comes to winemaking and how you made it.
So it's like one of the winemakers here. She says it's like like a chef. The winemaker's a chef. He's not. He's given what he's given, a winemaker, and he makes the best he can from that and tries to stay out of the way. But you're walking to a winery and there's all these open vats of thing, and you're panicking because by the book.
Yeah.
This doesn't make any sense.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So the strength of the yeast, the natural yeast on the skins is causing this fermentation. Okay, so now we've got organic grapes. We're in the winery.
Fermentation is over. What's happening?
Yeah.
Well, when it comes to Sangiovese, Canaiolo, and Colorino, the oak is very important. Traditionally, Tuscany always use big casks, 30 hectoliters, French oak, mainly, Allier, Alabido-Slovenian oak. And that's how wine in Tuscany has been made for the last centuries. So even for us, the use of oak is one of the key points. We don't like new oak. Well, not just because we are picky, but because Sangiovese, Canaiolo, and Colorino doesn't like new oak.
Yeah,
they're so refined, so elegant, that by using a super toasted new barrel, you just kill them. So all the things you've been doing in the vineyard, all the things you've been doing during the fermentation will basically be completely
Wow, that's interesting. Never heard that.
Yeah. So we use very old barriques, 225 liters, at least third passage.
Really? Okay, so minimum you don't want it, as little influence but softening
Exactly.
acid. Right?
We need a little bit of influence, but a little bit.
Yeah.
Not too much. And the wines remains in barrel at least 18 months. And then before they're ready, and the final blend, and that's where my part comes in. Imagine that at the end of the aging, you don't have the wines ready. No, you don't have the final blends done. But we have more than 60 wines to play at the winery, and that's how where the fun begins.
Yes,
you know?
this harvest that when I went to ask is back on the harvest conversation, but if you have 6 or 8 different harvests, is that the course of like a week or like 6 weeks or?
No more than 10 days usually. That's the maximum from the first to the last. So
and you're deciding the ripeness, as Piero and Senza calls it, the phenolic ripeness, the sort of the tactile ripeness, not just, we're at 23 bricks, time to pick.
No, well, of course, chemistry is important, but we always try with our palate what we're picking, because chemistry tells us a lot, but doesn't tell us if it's good or bad at taste at the end. So we basically select all the grapes when they're perfectly ripened.
So I had Victoria Aslanian in here. She's her father was a Russian oligarch. He was a hotelier, and he found some land in Armenia in the Ararat Valley, which overlooks the famous mountain, where Noah landed his ark and planted grapes and became drunk. That's the story in Genesis, right? So, but she was talking about the cradle of winemaking being from the Central Europe, as well as some other things that I thought were interesting, like Caucasian oak. And you mentioned Slovenian oak.
Yeah.
But she was talking about Caucasian in general. I don't know if that meant Georgian, Armenian, Turkish.
I've never tried it.
Yeah, that's just a fascinating thing. So I just brought that up with the winemaker from Los Vascos. He goes, well, the Chernobyl could have affected some of this thing. And I said, well, no wonder my Chardonnay was green when I poured it in the bottle the other day, right? But I find that interesting, because now we've got influences of oak from American oak is very pungent and contributes way too much in my opinion, to the character of the wine. And
you cannot use American oak on Sangiovese, for example. It gives too much oxygen.
And Sangiovese seems to be delicate that way.
It is.
Right?
It's like Pinot Noir. Yeah. It's like Nebbiolo. You need something where you have micro-oxygenation, and the Allier, so the forest, the French forest, is the perfect one for Sangiovese.
So tell me now the IGT rules for any of that. Are there rules regarding that?
No, zero rules. You can, for IGT, you can have stainless steel tanks or new barrel. You don't have a regulation. It's just a winemaker choice.
That's it?
Yeah, that's it.
Is there another level besides IGT?
Vino Tavola.
Oh, so that goes down a notch.
Down. Yeah. So you have DOCG, IGT, and then the Vino da Tavola, which is basically, you don't even need the vintage on the Vino Tavola.
So what happens when you go to the DOCG?
Well, DOCG depends on, there's plenty of DOCG in Italy and Tuscany. So it really depends on which one you're talking about.
Yeah.
But they're very strict in the grapes. That's the number 1 rule. And on timing, that's number 2 rule. So grapes and timing. When it comes to Brunello di Montalcino, for example, you can have a Brunello di Montalcino DOCG if it's before 5 years. Before 5 years of aging,
right,
you know what I mean?
Yes.
So it's really a matter of the single DOCG appellation and the story of that appellation.
Is there conflict, maybe just friendly conflict or friendly between like you've got Puglia and you've got the Tuscany and you've got the not Montefalco, but
we have Umbria, we have Marche,
right.
Piemonte.
So and distinctively different wines, distinctly different grapes. I'll be frank, love the Piemonte wines. I don't see why I have to pay so much money for Brunello. Not for Brunello, for a Barolo. Mm-hmm. But they're out there, and there's some enophiles who love them, and I think they're great wines too. But is there sort of a competition between the different regions of Italy, or are you guys pretty friendly? You've worked in 3 of them. So
there's no competition just because Tuscany is, without any doubt, the best one.
Best, of course, yes. We all know this already.
So there's no competition for them. Yeah. No, I'm just joking. I'm totally in love with the wines from Piedmont, and I believe that the 2 top regions for Italian wines at the moment, there's also other regions that are growing up, but at the moment, Tuscany and Piedmont are the 2 regions too.
Yeah, they are, which have been. But I had the mayor of Montefalco in here, Valentino Valentini.
Oh, well, that's an amazing wine.
Yeah,
that's
a really interesting story.
I love they're growing up. The region is doing well. The wines are amazing. So as I said, there is plenty of other niche in Italy.
There was also a conversation I had with a negociant who's buying things from Puglia. She was telling me, I think there's 23 or 26 DO regions in Puglia, which is...
Puglia is doing well. Still, I think Puglia looked like Tuscany 40 years ago. Mm-hmm. So there is... quality is growing, but it's still a little bit ahead. But definitely it's one of the regions that in the next 10 years will
be growing.
Will keep growing. Yeah.
What is the worldwide demand then for Bibi Graetz wines, and where are you selling them, and what are we doing with them?
Well, we do about 80% of our production export. So 20% is for national market, Italian market, and the rest is export. The two wines that are mostly known about Bibi Graetz, Colore and Testamatta, are in a very unique distribution system, and I'm very proud about it. We are with the Negociant from Bordeaux.
Really?
So a part of US where we have, the best partner ever possible, Folio Fine Wines. For the rest of the world, and since 2018, so it's quite a fresh thing, Testamatta and Colore are within the very small group.
Interesting.
That is now in the hands of the Negociant from Bordeaux.
Yeah.
And if I can name other Italian producers, we're talking about Masseto, Ornellaia, Sassicaia, Solaia.
Same Negociant.
Solaia, yes, same Negociant. Right. And now you have Colore and Testamatta. So 6 Italian wines in the pool of Negociant, same Negociant. And this is when something like that happens, you understand that you're working well.
Sure.
Not only in terms of brand, but mostly in terms of quality.
And now Chinese market.
Chinese market is growing. It's a very wild market. For us, it's not one of the historical markets.
Yeah.
When I think about Asia, Japan is a Bibi Graetz market. Japan has such a very nice wine culture. There's so much into Tuscan wines, so much into Italian culture. So Japan has always been one of the main markets for us in Asia.
To me, that's clearly geopolitical. Japanese have enjoyed fine things of whiskeys and meat, and we have Kobe beef and even more now. And the Chinese have been sort of muted in that regard, and now they're starting to come around. And they started with the high-end Bordeaux. That's all they wanted for long ever. Yeah, that's all they ever wanted. And now there's Napa cabs, and that's all great. But now I'm getting requests personally for containers of just about anything that's
true.
From California. That's good.
China is growing for us. It's I've seen in the last 5-6 years a completely different approach from the Chinese market.
Yeah.
There is now a higher education, more interest than just top brands from Bordeaux.
Right.
No?
Well, when you're mixing first growth Bordeaux with Coca-Cola and a glass of ice, that's kind of a problem.
That's the problem. You're right.
Vincenzo, it's been a great pleasure having you here, and I hope we can do it again. The wines are gorgeous. We still have to taste a couple before you leave. I'm not going to let you get away without that. But look forward to seeing you again sometime.
The pleasure was mine, and next time we gotta meet with a good glass in Firenze.
Firenze, and have a rare steak.
Yeah, that's the plan. So thanks again.
My pleasure. Cheers.
Grazie mille.
Thank you.